Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got some fun crafts for you today. I also have a few sweet friends who will be joining me. I need to figure out some different words because I always want to jumble them. A few sweet friends who's going to be joining me. I'll explain those details a little bit later. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today marks the first video of our 2024 fall crafting season. Let's make some rustic farmhouse apples. Let's start with project number 1. I've got 2 sets of fabrics here. Most of them came from Walmart, a few from Jubilee Fabrics. The ones that did come from Jubilee, I'll have a link down below. I will have a free pattern printable for you. This is for this one, of course. Link to my blog in the description box where you'll find all the free patterns and printables for today's projects. All right, so the first thing I'm doing, I'm just going to cut one set of fabrics here on camera, and we're going to go through the whole thing. And then the second apple, I kind of do the majority of it off camera because I'm already showing you with this one. I'm cutting 4 of this fabric with our apple / eyeball shape. And for the leaf, I'm going to elect to use some batting here. I do get it at Walmart. In one of the upcoming projects, I'll show you the packaging, what it looks like, you know, when you go to look for it in Walmart. And I'm cutting 2 pieces of fabric for that and 1 piece of batting. So I have 4 apple, 2 leaf, and 1 leaf batting. All right, and then I'm ripping about a 1-inch strip of fabric. Now our eyeball / apple shape, I need to get off the eyeball, it's about 7 inches long and about 4 1/4 inches wide, just in case you wanted to know that. And then what we're going to do, if you're a gluer, you're going to put 2 of these apple pieces together. On one side, you're going to glue that, but you want to start at least probably about a 1/2 inch down from the top on each section and glue all the way down. If you're a sewer, about a 1/2 inch from the top, glue all the way down to the point at the bottom, or sew all the way down to the point at the bottom. So here I'm sewing it all the way down. And then you can see I'm about a 1/2 inch from the top. You might even want to go a little bit more than a 1/2 inch. It's quite a tight squeeze, but I make it. Here's what it looks like from the inside. And then you're going to apply your next apple shape. Again, about a 1/2 inch from the top. If you're a gluer, glue all the way down to the end of the point, or sew all the way down. I'll do that one off camera. Here I've got 3 now. This is what it looks like from the inside. And then we're going to add our last shape. Now this one you're going to do both sides. So gluing or sewing all the way down, again 1/2 inch from the top down to the point, and then to the other side. Again, 1/2 inch from the top, gluing and sewing all the way down to the bottom. This is what 4 looks like so far. Now I'm going to close our apple up. Again, leaving that little space there. We need to leave that space because we have to flip our apple, right? Got to flip the fabric, and we need to be able to stuff it. All right? Let me show you what that looks like. So we got our little opening here. We're wrong side out, and then let's flip it. Nice and easy. Then we'll set that aside and work on the leaf. If you're a gluer, obviously glue everything together, whether or not you use batting. I just like batting. It gives it a quilted look. If you're a sewer, I'm going to go all the way around the edge and then once down the center just to give it a little decoration. If you're a gluer, you could elect to take a little hand stitching down the center just to give that leaf a little definition, but it's totally optional. With the color thread I'm using, you don't really see it all that much. I just was too lazy to change it to a darker thread, but in my brain, I know I did it. All right, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second, getting it all sewn. Here's what it looks like. See, it's just barely visible, but I know it's there. Now, since the leaf is done, let's stuff our apple, and you need to kind of stuff it nice and tight. We don't want like a shrunken in apple, like it's not good enough to eat. We want it nice and tight, so we want to take a bite into the apple, right? Now I'm using some crochet thread, and I'm making a really thick knot, almost like a quadruple knot at the end. And I'm taking my needle, a long needle, like a upholstery needle, from the bottom outside of the pumpkin apple, all the way up through the center to the top until the end reaches the knot right there. Okay, and then you're going to take your needle, turn it back around, and go from the top down to the bottom, and then pull it nice and tight here. See, it looks like I have a little divot at the bottom, just like an apple looks like, right? And then I'm going to come back in through the bottom, up through the top again. So we're going to do this a couple of times so we really get that divot. Look, and pull it nice and tight from the top so you get that divot. And then come in just on one of your little open little segments there and kind of make a little stitch in it. All right? I'm going to just do one more little stitch here, and leave it like that for a minute, okay? Got a nice little divot and leave it. Now, what I'm going to do, see, one of my little areas kind of came undone stitching. I'm just going to glue that together. Don't worry, because our leaf and all that will hide it if you need to fix that. So for a stem, you could use like a branch. You could use a dowel. You could use, here it comes, cinnamon sticks. I have these long cinnamon sticks. I was going to go with the cinnamon stick, but I'm going to go with the branch and then use the cinnamon stick on the next apple. So now I want my apple to have the same indent on the top as we do on the bottom, but this is optional, okay? I just want it to look like that. But the first thing before we do that is I'm going to come around and just make like a gathering stitch on all our little tops of our apple segments there, okay? And then we're going to get our branch in the center. We're not going to pull our thread closed yet. We just want to get the thread ready. We're going to get our branch in the center, and I'm going to get my leaf glued right over that spot where I had to glue it to hide it. And now we're going to pull our thread and get it nice and tight up against our branch, okay? Then I'm going to bring that thread under the leaf so it's hidden, and I'm going to go from the top down to the bottom. I'm going to have to use some pliers here to pull it out because it gets kind of tough to pull it out. All right, and I'm going to slow it way down here. Watch as I pull it, the branch at the top. See how it sinks in? It's pulling that center down, okay? And then I'm going to just come back up from the bottom to the top again. I'm going to pull it tight, and then I'm just going to go ahead and just make a little knot here and tie it off. All right, here we go, making our little knot. Don't worry, this little knot and all this thread will get hidden. Now, if you're a gluer, you can skip the whole thread part if you want. You don't have to do a knot at the bottom or anything at the top. Just glue it all closed and skip it. All right, here's what it looks like all done. And now what I want to do, I've got 2 pieces of muslin material and a piece of batting. Glue it all together if you're a gluer. I sewed it all together off camera because we're going to make a little tag for our apple. And I'm going to use these clickable stamps from Michaels. I'm going to use my VersaFine ink. I'll have a link down below to the stamps from Michaels and VersaFine ink for you. And I'm just going to stamp in fresh apples. I love these stamps because they're just so nice and country looking. And then I'm going to glue my tag right over where I made that knot, right? Hides it up. And then I'm going to take my strip of fabric and I'm going to just tie a little knot in here and put some glue on our little branch so that it holds that fabric down. Kind of crumple up the ends, the tails a little bit, and then I'm going to take some Distress Oxide ink in Vintage Photo. I'm going to ink up my leaf a little bit. I'm going to ink up around on my tag a little bit, give it a little bit more of a rustic look, around on the fabric a little bit, around at the bottom. I really do it at the bottom because on real apples they kind of have that shadowing at the bottom. And that makes this apple done. Now let's move on to our next apple. For this apple, it turned out to be a mistake, but then I'm like, I kind of like it. Caffeine was wearing off and I went to sew it and I realized I sewed it with the right sides out. But I'm like, I'm going to make it outside in apple or inside out apple. And I stuffed it, right? Because I've done this with the pumpkins before and I love how those look. And I'm coming in, so I sewed it seams out, stuffed it, and I'm coming in again with our thread and doing that same technique with like the quadruple knot, right? Coming in from the bottom to the top, then back down from the top to the bottom, and then back up from the bottom to the top and pulling it nice and tight so we have that nice indented bottom. Again, if you're a gluer, just skip this whole thread part. And then I'm going to do a little bit of, my gather stitch around all my little opened end segment pieces here so that we can pull those tight later around the cinnamon stick that I chose to use on this one. I'm kind of pulling that cotton in there so I can get my cinnamon stick in there and glue it in. Perfect. And now I've got my leaf already sewed, so I'm going to just go ahead and ink that up now. And my tag, I'm inking around the edges and the back side in case the back gets seen. And on this one, I'm going to stamp Apple Orchard with the Michaels clickable stamps. Really cute. Right, I'm going to glue my leaf in, spot there in the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and now, remember, I'm going to take my needle down from the top down to the bottom using my pliers because I want to make that indent at the top as well, and then pull my needle back up from the bottom to the top in the center. Again, you could skip this part, and then I pulled it really tight, and now I'm just making a little knot and pulling it all together, pulling my gathering stitches and everything together, and then I'm gluing my tag on there right on top, and then I've got a little strip of fabric here, again, just a little knot around it, gluing it to the cinnamon stick so it stays in place. And then kind of wrinkling and crinkling my little bows here, tails. This is what both of them look like. I'm going to just throw a little picture in here of the finished look. We'll take a look at the live action at the end of the video. I love how these turned out, even if one of them started as a mistake. What do you think? It's time for project number 2. For this project, I found one of these thick apples, actually 2 of them, at Dollar Tree. I'm just going to use one for today, and the first thing I'm going to do is just gently get the leaf off. I'm not going to reuse the leaf. You totally could, but I am going to save it. And what I'm going to do is cut the stem off, and then I'm going to sand everything. And I was going to use a dowel at first for the top, but then I believe I end up using a branch. And look at a great view of my arm here, cutting the stem off. I didn't quite have it right. And then I'm using my little table saw there to, cut the dowel, but I end up, like I said, not using it. And now I'm sanding flat where that leaf was on there and kind of sanding the front a little bit. And then I don't like all the sharp edges, right? So I'm just kind of rounding those off with my sander, all the cut edges, and just making it look a little more rustic country that way by kind of sanding those down. And of course I do take the label and everything off of the back. Here it is. And then I'll sand the sticky off. And I'm going to paint this whole thing. And you could make a set of 2. It would be cute, but I wanted to save it because I had another idea for this apple. I already drilled a hole, which could fit the dowel, of course. But like I said, I end up using a branch instead because it gives it a little more rusticness. This is what I'm going to go with, okay? I think that looks cute, right? All right, so I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Rustic Red for this, and then Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Pine Cone. It's a new color I haven't tried, but I think it's going to work great. And then I'm going to just start out, of course, by, like I said, save your leaf if you want to use it. So if you do the leaf, some kind of green color for that. But I'm going to start out by painting my apple, of course, front, back, sides, a couple of coats, all right? And then I will sand it off camera to give it a nice distress look. And the neat thing about this chalk paint, and especially in one of our next upcoming projects today, when you sand it, you get almost like a whole different color with chalk paint, and I love it. Just painting a little bit inside that hole there in case some of it gets seen, if, the branch doesn't quite cover it all up, so it looks nice. And then here it is all sanded. See, it just kind of gives it a nicer look. Front and back and sides sanded. And then I'm going to just take a pencil and make some wavy lines across the front and sides. If you haven't guessed it yet, because of the color paint we're using, we're going to make a caramel apple. Now, I know this kind of looks a little green, but I can't remember if it's on camera or off, but I used that vintage photo ink like we used in the first project, and I just kind of ink around the edges and stuff and give it a nicer, kind of brownish tone. But I think the camera makes it look a little bit greenish tint, but in person it has a little bit browner tone, but I make it a little bit more browner tone with the ink. Okay? So just making the nice edges there, because I'm not going to completely cover the edges with, one of our upcoming steps. Here's what that looks like, and I sanded that as well. I was going to use this side, but then I ventured to this side, and then at the end I go back to the other side. I've got 2 pieces of muslin fabric again and some batting. If you're a gluer, you can glue all those together. We're going to make a little tag. Here I have it all sewn. And then I'm going to take my ink. I sewed it off camera if you didn't know that. And take my ink and ink or just around the edges. I always leave the center open so when we stamp our image, it kind of gives a halo, a silhouette around it. Makes those stamped words, appear even more. And I'm going to stamp caramel apple on here. Again with the Michaels clickable stamps. Link in my description box. All right, ready to go. And now I'm going to glue in my stem using my favorite Beacon Fabri-Tac glue and put a little bit of glue right inside that hole as well. Get that stem in there. And now I'm taking some black chalk paint, just mixed with water, my fan brush. I dip it in the paint, wipe off the excess, and then I tap the fan brush to get some splatters. And I do splatter the sides and the other back off camera. The other the back side of the apple. It's not a video without my made-up words. Anyway, so for the fake nuts, I found this, I think it was a video, and they showed this package of pet bedding, and I think it had a parrot and a hamster on it. They found it at Walmart. I could never find mine, but if you want to look, great. If not, I'll have a link down below to the Etsy shop that I found it in under fake nuts, and this looked like the picture that I saw in the video, and it works great. So we have some fake nuts, aka pet bedding. I'm going to start with this spray adhesive to kind of get the first layer of nuts on there. You could totally use, which I think would work great, Mod Podge or something like that. But I start in with, like I said, the first layer. I spray it nice, and then I just dump these fake nuts on real heavy, tap off the excess, and then once that's all set, then I go back in for like the second layer, you know, spreading or drizzling my Fabri-Tac glue over the first layer, and then of course, you know, adding the fake nuts on top of that. Now, I don't know, of course, I'm keeping the bottom clear because our apple has to set up, so don't get any on the very bottom, as I just showed you. I'll show you here again. See, bottom is nice and clear. Our apple's got to set up, and it does. We're on the right track. Now, I'm with you. This is my first time using this stuff, so I cannot answer any questions on how long this stays off or does it fall off really easy. I don't know. We're going to learn this together. But I think like Mod Podge, you know, I don't know if you could seal over Mod Podge over the top with it because it might just brush it off. I don't know. I'm going to try some spray sealer off camera and see if that works to kind of seal it in. I don't know. If somebody has any ideas, leave it in the description box down below. But I think by doing the second layer with Fabri-Tac glue, it kind of helped hold the first layer in. I'm not sure, but I think it looks really cute with double nuts. And I purposely didn't cover kind of that area above the nuts, the caramel line that you see, because we want to be able to see it's caramel and nuts, right? But yeah, 1 or 2 nuts did fall off, but I'm going to try the sealer. We'll see what happens. But again, any ideas? Comment down below. I'm going to add in a ripped strip of fabric as we've been doing with our other projects, and we'll continue to do with our upcoming projects today. Make a little bow here, and I'm going to glue it onto the stem. We already made our tag, and I have a little flat rusty metal star here. I'll leave the link down below to where I got those, and I'm using a little cute safety pin. I'm wrinkling and crinkling the tails of my bows because I always like those to stay in position. And you can see my bow is up above on the branch a little bit because otherwise the tag kind of covered stuff down below too much. So I'm going to pin the star, the tag, everything to the center of that bow, and then I'm going to kind of glue it over to the side here. That makes this project complete. Again, we'll take a look at a couple of pictures, but see the live action at the end of the video. What do you think? Do you like how this one turned out? I want to make like a little set of a bunch of little caramel apples. I think that'll be cute. Well, you probably thought I forgot, but I didn't. Here are the details to today's YouTube collaboration with a few sweet friends of mine. Today's hashtag Autumn Mood collaboration. I am joining in with Patty, who is Patty J. Good, Emily, who is Farm Charm Chic, and Wendy, who is White Sparrow Living Luke 12:6 here on YouTube, and we are in the mood to give you some autumn crafts or fall crafts or apple crafts today, all of which I'm sure fall into the same general vicinity of fall crafting today. Make sure you grab a snack and a drink because after you watch my video, you have 3 more videos of fabulous fall crafts to check out from these fabulous, beautiful ladies. The link to the playlist will be in my description box as well as pinned in my comment, so it'll be in one convenient location, easy for you to find. With that said, let's move right on into apple project number 3. For this project, these are the fabrics I'm starting out with. The one on top I do end up changing, but the other ones are the same. We are going to be making a gigantic apple pillow. Y'all know I love to make pillows. So I do have a pattern for you. It's 18.5 inches wide, 15.5 inches tall. And the way I did this is I drew the pattern, both of them, and then I folded it in half. I cut the outer side first and then the inner side so that I would have a large apple and a small apple. This is your pattern. It comes in 4 pages, linked to the blog in my description box. And what you're going to do is tape together here where the arrows are facing each other, here, 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 and here. The patterns will print right to the edge of the paper, so tape those together, okay? And then you're going to take this and fold it in half. See the fold at the top and the bottom? Fold it in half vertically, and then you're going to turn it horizontally, right? And then you're going to cut out this main apple, and then you're going to cut out this inner apple. And then you end up, like I started with, of course, 2 apples. All right? Let's get started with that. Oh, and you're going to have a stem here. That will be on the pattern as well. I have it right down here in the lower corner, and one more that I'll add to the pattern a little bit later. You're going to cut 2 pieces of fabric for your stem. All right, you're going to cut 2 pieces of fabric for your main big apple and 1 piece of fabric for your center apple. Now, when I went to go cut this out, I felt like I needed to tell you, cut out the apple, because this is just a silhouette, right? Do not cut out the inside, okay? I was like, I need to say that just in case. Don't cut out the inside. Leave it intact. I just did this so that it was an easy way to create a pattern, 2 patterns for us kind of out of one sheet, okay? And then for the inside of that piece that we cut out, we're going to use a separate piece of fabric, all right? So for the separate piece of fabric, here's the batting I was talking about. It's easy. This is twin size and they have queen size. You can buy it by the yard, or if you go to Walmart, you can buy it by the yard in Walmart, or you can just buy it in the bag here. And I figured it out. It's maybe about a 25-cent difference. I often have kind of a hard time trying to find someone to cut our fabric at Walmart. So a lot of times getting the bag is easier to do. So I'm doing 2 pieces of batting and 2 pieces of this fabric because it's kind of thin. This fabric comes from Walmart. That polka dot fabric's from Jubilee Fabrics. I'll have the link down below to that. And so I'm just going to pin all of this together, and I'm going to cut out my center apple and the batting along with it. Now you can elect to cut out no batting or 1 piece of batting or 1 piece of, however you want to do it. Like I said, it's just kind of thin fabric, so I'm cutting out 2 pieces of that, 2 pieces of batting. Here's my main apple, 2 pieces. My batting, again, 2 pieces. I like to do 2 pieces of batting because it just kind of poofs up the front, and then my fabric because it's kind of thin, 2 pieces, and then my stem, 2 pieces. And then for the quote-unquote leaf area, I'm just going to rip a piece about 2-inch strip of fabric. And then I'm going to cut that in half so I have 2 pieces of leaf. All right? Okay, let's set that aside. If you're a gluer, you can glue. I'm going to leave raw edges out. You can glue the inside along the 3 sides, leaving the bottom open. If you're a sewer, you can sew in there. If you don't want to leave your raw edges out, with your stem and your main apple, you could put right sides together, glue along the edges like here on the stem, leaving the bottom open, and then flip it back so that the right sides are out and it looks pretty. But I like to leave raw edges out because it kind of gives it that rustic look. All right, so if you're a gluer or sewer, you can get your stem ready. Now we're going to move to the top. Take your bottom piece of main apple off. All right, we're going to mess with the top piece of the main apple and our batting and secondary piece of apple on top. If you're a gluer, you can glue it all together, or you can sew around the edges. Or you can make some cute little country stitches around the edge. I'm going to pull in our crochet string, only I'm going to use black. I just kind of had this out because I couldn't decide the cream or black, but I'm going black crochet string. Again, you can find that at Walmart. And I'm just going to kind of tack my top layers down here for a minute to help hold everything in place. And then I've got a long piece of black crochet thread here, a knot at the bottom. And I'm just going to start from the underside of the apple here, right along the edge of that top apple. And then I'm just going to pull that needle and thread all the way through till the knot reaches the bottom side of that fabric. And then I'm just going to come straight out from that secondary apple into the primary apple and make a little stitch and pull that needle from the front to the back. And then I'm just going to repeat this process all the way around, just making these cute little stitches. If you're an experienced sewer, you could elect to do like the blanket stitch all the way around, which would be really, really cute. I will have a link to a video in my blog. Talks about basic sewing stitches if you need to watch that. You know, if you're a beginner sewer and just kind of need to see this method a little bit slower. I did that all the way around, as you can see here. And then I decided the apple needed something, and I thought a couple of little seeds would be cute. So I hand you some of these skinny little hearts. Now I cut out 2 pieces of fabric and a piece of batting for these, and I wanted to stress the edges of the heart. So sandpaper works really quick and easy. And yes, I'll have these hearts included on the free pattern. And then I'm just going to go ahead and sew them down around the edges just like I did around the perimeter of the secondary apple. Of course, if you're a gluer, you can just glue these down, but the apple was so big and the center was just like bare and it needed something, and I didn't want to just, make square pieces of fabric, so I think the hearts kind of give it a nice cutesy look. Here's my stem out of the different fabric that I chose. It's still kind of a corduroy fabric, but I like the color better. I found it in the scraps when I was looking for the black fabric for the seeds. Now let's put our whole apple together. The back piece of our main fabric for our apple, put that back in place, and then if you're a gluer, kind of stick your stem in there if you want to kind of, keep that opening, and glue all the way around between the two edges of the main apple fabric and stop before and after the stem so it leaves that opening, and then you can stuff that opening, and then you can stuff your stem and then glue your stem, as soon as I get it open, right inside. Just like that. Glue it down. If you're a sewer, we're going to sew all the way around, leaving the opening for our stem, of course, so we can allow stuffing and all that kind of stuff. So get your stem stuffed, ready to go. Before, though, I sew the apple together, I have made a tag here. So if you want to add a tag, whether you're a gluer or sewer, this tag is about, 6 inches long? And then it's about probably 3.25 inches wide. Just cut it with some muslin and some batting, of course. 2 pieces of muslin, 2 pieces of batting, and I'm going to sew around the edges while I sew the apple. If you're a gluer, you can, of course, glue your little tag together, just like we were doing on the last couple of projects, and we'll continue to do on the next project. We're, making our cute little tags, right, with some batting in between. Now, when I sew this outer apple, I actually do like a double sewing line, like a double border, just to give it a little something more. I don't know if it does, but it looks like it does, so I'm going with it. So if you want, you can do a double border around it. Here's my tag all sewn, ready to go. I'm using this printable that I created. It's a free printable for you. If you look in the upper left corner there, the top, the word Farm Fresh and Apples is separated, and the bottom, I've connected them. So I kind of gave you 2 design options there. Again, the free pattern will be on my blog. I'm using my Vevor heat press machine here. I love it. I'll have a link to that original video plus the projects I did using this heat press if you're interested below in my description box as well. Also, I forgot to mention, if you want to create the printable for yourself or whatever, I'll have those fonts listed in my description box. But I love how this heat press works. You can see it's ready to go, and I'm just going to peel this fresh, hot, right out of the oven, and it looks fantastic. I love it. It's cute. Let's move on with our project, right? We got this part down now. Okay, so I'm taking my 2 pieces of green fabric here, also known as our leaves, and I just tied them in a knot separately. And then I've got some 2 different kitties. You had Bella in the first half of her body in the first frame, and then you got Boston in the second frame here. I've got some thick twine from Walmart. I'm tying around the stem and gluing it at the back, and then tied it in a bow, and then I'm bringing in my, vintage photo ink again and inking around the quote, leaving that center open. See how it kind of shines with the center not inked up? And then I'll just ink that back a little bit in case it gets seen. You all know I like my stuff finished off. And then I'm inking that secondary apple around the edges, just giving it a shadow, and then around our little pumpkin leaves. Pumpkin seeds, and our leaf here, just kind of letting everything have that shadowing to give it some depth. And then I'm gluing our leaves on, and then I'm gluing the tag on. I glued the knot of the leaves at the bottom of the bow, gluing the tag on, and then I'm gluing that twine bow and knot right at the top of the tag, and then I'm kind of wrinkling and crinkling my leaves together there and gluing them down. I glue in between the layers of the leaves too because, they're separate. And then I always like to just kind of, I don't want my twine tails to just hang over the tag. So I like to kind of wrinkle and crinkle them and glue those in place as well. And then they're always in the position I like them to be. Perfect. Get down to the bottom here, and then again I'll throw up some finished photos here for you, and we'll look at the live results at the end of the video. I'm going to kind of wrinkle my tag up a little bit. Here's what it looks like finished. Again, this is like a gigantic apple pillow, but I love it. What do you think? Let's move into our last project, number 4. For this project, I'm using these heart on dowels from Dollar Tree. If you have those thick hearts, those thick wooden hearts without the dowels, I think those would look fabulous, but I didn't have any, but our Dollar Tree at least had these. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the dowels off about a 1/2 inch off the bottom so that we have a nice straight stretch for that to set up. Okay, we're going to use these hearts and make them look like apples. Stay with me. Once that's off, I'm going to go ahead and sand these up because you know how I said earlier, I don't like really straight edges along things. So I really want to make them country looking. And so I'm sanding and rounding off all those straight, sharp edges. Okay, front and back, both sides. And then we'll get into painting these things. I'm going to use a couple of different color reds and a green here. All right, so here's Dixie Belle in the color Rustic Red, Dixie Belle in the color Barn Red, and this green is just 2 different colors of green I mixed together. Couldn't tell you what they were to start with, both chalk paints. And I'm going to do 2 coats of each one, front and back. And then off camera, I'll go ahead and sand and distress everything because, well, this video is long enough and y'all know how to sand and distress, right? Hopefully so. And if you don't want to sand and distress, you don't have to. What do I like to say? Because I heard it somewhere else. You do you. All right, once these are done painted, then I will show you how they look all nice and distressed up. I think they look really country farm cute. And here it is. Look how cute those look. Now, I know, like I said, I've got 2 different reds and a green. You could actually make one of these, maybe like one of those kind of yellowish looking apples would look really cute. So now I have 3 pieces of ripped fabric here, and they're about just a little over 6 inches long, maybe about 1.5 inches wide. I'm going to fold each one in half, and at the raw edge, the cut edge of each one, I got a little leaf here I cut out of fabric from another project I was going to do, and I'm just cutting a leaf shape out of both of those ends, like folded together. Do you know what I'm saying? And then I'm sanding each one to give it a distress look, and when I open it, it kind of looks like an untied bow tie. Does that make sense? Now, you don't have to do this at all. You can just have a ripped piece of fabric, but when we tie it around the stem, by kind of cutting that leaf shape on each end, it looks like a couple of leaves. It's going to be cool. Now, I have the gift bag here. It kind of just looks like a paper sack. It's a really thick paper sack, and I'm just cutting some tags here. I have one already done, but of course, I need 3 tags. I have 3 apples, and I'm cutting 2 for each tag, and now I'm just wrinkling, crinkling up each one, okay? This is going to be an option to our fabric tag we've been doing. So like I said, wrinkle and crinkle up each one. And then once those are done, I'm cutting, yes, you're seeing it, I'm cutting a piece of batting to go between our paper tags here. It's going to look really cute, but you can leave that out if you want. And now I'm just taking my little mini iron here and I'm ironing the tags out. And I'll bring this up to the camera a little bit closer because once you iron it out, look, it kind of starts to look like, you know, rough leather, right? Worked up leather, old leather. And then taking my Distress Oxide and Vintage Photo, I'm going to ink all these tags up. And then when I bring it up, it really even looks more like, you know, worn leather is what I was trying to say earlier. See, look at that. Looks like worn leather. Kind of a neat different twist than the old fabric tag we've been making for the last 3 projects. All right, I'm going to sandwich them together and I'm sewing it together with, I think I've got a size 14 needle in my sewing machine here. It sews through it just nice and easy. Of course, if you're a gluer, you can just glue it together, but I'm just trying to keep that sewn look throughout all my projects today. And then I'm taking my crocodile tool here and just punching a little hole, and I've got some safety pins here, and then I've got a button, I've got a rusty bell and a rusty star. I'm going to punch a little hole in the rusty star because it kind of broke off a piece of garland I had. And then I'm going to stamp on each of the tags. This one is going to say Fresh Apples. The next one will say You Pick. And the last one that I already did off camera says Apple Orchard. Here's that right here, and we're ready to go. Now for the stem, a little bit different. I've got 3 really big, long, rusty nails. I picked them out of my husband's bag of nails in the garage, and now I'm just using a drill bit that matches the size of the nails, and I'm drilling down into the apples a little bit so that, we don't just nail the nails right in or hammer the nails right in because it might crack our wood, right? So we want that pile of oil first, and then I'll go ahead and kind of hammer the nails in. They're really long, so it gives us a really long stem, but I'm okay with that. If you like this option, great. You could, drill holes and put a dowel in there or something like that if you think the nail idea looks stupid, but I think it's really cute. And now I sewed around my leaves, so to speak, because I thought that would add some fun personality. And I'm just tying it around the nail, just kind of a little knot here. Now watch, because we cut our leaves out on the ends of this, right? Once I get this into position, look, it's 2 little leaves. Ta-da! But again, you don't have to do that, but I thought that's a cute way to, get our leaves on without making separate leaves to glue on. And I just glue those into place around the nail so that our fabric stays in place. Here's the way this one looks. And then we'll get our last one on, glued into place around that nail, and then this is how this one looks. But again, it would look good either way with just ripped fabric or shaped leaves fabric, I guess, so to speak. Now on the first apple, I'm adding a button and the tag and just kind of pinning it to the center of our leaves. And I'm going to go ahead and ink around the apple and give it a little shadowing and leave the center a little lighter so it gives it a little depth, and kind of crinkle up the bow just a little bit to the side and glue it into place. That apple's done. I'm going to do the same on this apple, ink around the edge. We're going to pin this with our bell to the center of our leaves. Crinkle and glue the tag into place, and I'm going to ink around this one as well. Again, depth. Add the star with the safety pin to the center of this leaf. Crinkle it just slightly to the side and glue it into place. And that makes these 3 apples almost done. I'm taking a little cream paint mixed with water and my fan brush again, adding some splatters. I will add splatters on the back as well and the sides. Now our project is complete. What do you think? So I hope you enjoyed our endeavor, our first endeavor into the fall crafts this year with these apple crafts. I just wasn't quite ready to get into my pumpkin crafts after coming out of the Christmas in July series, and I thought apples, those are fall. Let's get into it. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which apple project you liked best. Please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow. And if you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, or maybe you came over from Wendy or Emily or Patty's channel, welcome! If you're digging what you saw, before you click off, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you do not miss out on another project from me. Thank you, Emily and Wendy and Patty, for joining me today in our hashtag Autumn Mood collaboration. You know I love your sweethearts. I just have so much fun crafting with you gals and chatting with you gals. Yep, gonna say it again. I love ya. Make sure everybody, once my video is finished, you check out the playlist link in my description box or pinned in my comments so you can go watch all these other hashtag Autumn Mood DIYs. You're gonna be glad you did. Now, before I go, I'm gonna leave you with one final thought. When you're facing situations that aren't ideal, it seems that time stands still and the complication lasts way longer than you want. The details worry you, they consume your thoughts, and it's all you can seem to focus on. Nothing is turning out like you expected it to or hoped it would, and the problem you are facing probably got worse as you tried to fix it yourself. Don't get entangled in the ropes of the wreckage. Here's the upside to getting out. Choose to turn to God. Reach for Him and let Him untangle the mess. Now, with any upside, there could be a downside. Remember, you tried to fix it yourself. So God may have to undo a lot of knots before you are free and able to rise to the surface for air. Don't worry, though. God will undo every knot as fast as he can so that you will not drown. Let me say that again. You will not drown. But you could be swimming upward for a while versus a smooth ascent to the surface. With each stroke, remember that God will never leave you to face this by yourself. His word promises that. Through this process, however, you need to keep your anxiety levels as low as you can by trying not to dwell on the stress of the situation. You need to alleviate your mindset by focusing on the victories that God has given you in the past, or maybe even try to think about what good he is accomplishing right now with what you are facing. There is always something to thank God for, so find that particular something and focus on it. If the only goodness your thought can process is how God is blessing you with actual life at this very point in time, you're breathing, you're alive, and you're not 6 feet under, then think on these things. By doing this as you are swimming up toward the surface, your thoughts of thanks will lead to another thought of thanks and another thought of thanks, and eventually you will find yourself not thinking of how tired your body is from swimming because your mind is not focusing on your fatigue. It's focusing on praising God. By praising God through the ordeal, each day you'll start to feel stronger. And as you feel stronger, his grace and his mercy will bring you peace, helping you to face another day. When each tomorrow comes and the sun rises and you open your eyes, if you start to feel that heaviness sink in again, remember where you left off yesterday. Start your praise again and find your strength again in the one who extends that strength to you. It's a day-by-day process, but I promise each day will be a better day. And soon you'll be able to stop swimming as your head crests the surface, all the while leaning on the praises and promises of God. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.